So here we are on the Gainesville, Georgia step tandem. We were in the middle of going through the switching train. We know that on the 5 level is the trunk group to Dawsonville 265, and we got to hear a nice Jane Barbie recording from that office. So first, let's just go ahead and dial 5 a few times, followed by 103, which should prove that yes, 5 is wired AR. Alright, so on the first selector, 5 is AR, 265, Dawsonville. Now let's make a few calls to Dawsonville. I'm going to dial most of these as 35 instead of 265. That's the quickest way to get it. Did you notice how the trunk noise changed when I dialed that 5? It's because there's a carrier system from Gainesville to Dawsonville that actually adds some noise to the connection. On this next call, when I dial 35, there's a nice relay sound. There it is, and now we're in Dawsonville. The trunk noise has changed. And now, hoping for a vacant level, I'll dial 00. Now that sounded again like one of those bad links. I bet you I'm back on the Dawsonville incoming selector. I'll dial 00 again. Yep, that's just another bad link. Okay, now a different last 4 digits. This time I'm actually going to dial 265. Now, on that last call, I actually dialed 265, and I did get Dawsonville on the 5. If you look at what we know so far about the first selector, the 2 is wired AR. That means when we dial 2, nothing happens. We then dialed a 6, followed by a 5, and got the Dawsonville trunk. What does that suggest about the digit 6? The digit 6 is wired to absorb, but not to absorb repeatedly. If it were, the 5 would also absorb when we dialed 265. So the 6 has to be wired to absorb once, A. Now the question is, what is on the 6th level itself? Let's dial 66. Okay, and now 103. What's going to happen? No sound, of course. Now, for 100 points, where are we? Oh, we're somewhere all right. It's actually a connector switch in the Gainesville office that we've ended up in. One more digit and... Now, where have I heard that ringing machine before? Well, of course, when we dial 66, the first 6 absorbs once, and the second 6 has to put us into the Gainesville 536 prefix, which is the same as dialing 36 or 536. So to get Gainesville 536, you can dial 36, 536, 66, 566, 555, 555, 36, doesn't matter. You could dial 236 for that matter, or 266. They all end up in the same place. One more call to 536, this time I'll just dial it as 36, and I'll try not to get that awful sounding AIS again.
We put quality first.
You betcha. By the way, in number 1 step offices such as this one, the ringing supply is double ring in some connector groups and single ring in others. That's 100 group by 100 group typically. You'll also notice that while the phone is ringing, you can actually hear qualities of the actual subscriber line. If it's a hummy line, you hear that in between the rings. Alrighty then, we did get to hear some real phones ringing. Unfortunately, so did those subscribers, but at least we didn't hear
this weathercron system.
So anyway, we've now proven that on the first selector, 6... Hold on a second. On the first selector, 6 should say A, comma, 536. And now we're ready to take on the 7s. Now, if you look at the list of prefixes, you'll see there's a bunch of them that begin with 7. We have 745, 67, 754, 778, 782. There is also 379, 579, and every one of the prefixes I've just mentioned would have to involve that 7 level, because where else could it go? So, what's likely to be on 7? Well, we can quickly answer that question by dialing 71. Yep, that was the same Gainesville vacant level recording. 7 is obviously going to a second selector, which I'm going to designate S7. If it were absorbing, 7-1 would have given us silence. We'll use the 5th table on the page for S7, so write S7 at the top of that table, and under 1 write VL for vacant level. This should be an interesting one to map, because a lot of prefixes have to go through this one. Let's try 7-2. Seven, 2, 1 went to that same Gainesville vacant level recording. Let's try 722. This has definitely gone somewhere. The trunk noise has changed. Let's listen to the trunk for a while. Cool stuff. There was a few operators keying numbers with MF key sets in there. Now I'm assuming that this is a trunk to one of the tributaries, so I'm going to dial a 1, hopefully to get a vacant level recording from that trib.
sorry, you have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number or try your call again.
Now, there isn't any prefix 722, but there is a 782, and it's possible that on selector 7, 2 is absorbed once, and maybe so is the digit 8. Let me try 782 plus the digit 1 and see if we get that same recording.
We're sorry, you have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number or try your call again. We're sorry, you have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number or try your call again.
Vacant level recordings that play once and stop are almost exclusively found in independent step offices, or Stromberg XY, while Bell system offices tend to have recordings that repeat over and over. Now, when you're going to have a recording on a vacant level that plays once and stops, you have to have a circuit in there to make sure it doesn't start playing until the subscriber has finished dialing the phone number. We hit that recording just by dialing the thousands group 1. We just dialed 7821 and it started up. Now it has to be able to reset in case we're dialing 1000 or whatever. And so by beeping 2600 toward the end of the recording, you heard me resetting it. In that, I was simulating the continued dialing of a phone number. In the Bell system, they don't have to do that because their recordings just repeat over and over and it doesn't matter. All right. So on selector 7, it appears that the digits 2 and 8 both absorb once, and on the 2 level are the trunks to Clayton 782. I think it's safe to write that in. On selector 7 under 2, write A, comma, 782, Clayton, and under 8, write A, comma. I will let you know if this turns out not to make any sense, but the fact that we got our Clayton 782 on both 722 and 782 suggests very strongly that 2 and 8 on that selector, S7, are both wired to absorb once, and that's how we got into Clayton. And we'll probably find that we can get into Clayton by dialing something else, too. So let's try 7-3.
Perfect.
On selector 7, 3 is vacant. Let's try 7-4. Seven 4 is giving us silence. No change in the trunk noise. That suggests that it's either gone to a third selector, which is unlikely, or that it has absorbed on selector 7, more likely. Let me turn up the volume and dial another 4, and if we go into a trib, we'll probably hear a change in the trunk noise. No noticeable change in the trunk noise at all. That doesn't mean we haven't gone anywhere, though. Let me dial a 1. That is a charming little independent reorder. This is a step or a Stromberg-Carlson XY. And let's see if we get that same reorder on 7-2-4. Okay, I dialed 7441, and I got the same reorder as when I dialed 7241. Let's try 7541. If we get that very same reorder, that will explain a lot of things. I dialed 754, and the trunk noise is noticeable. We've definitely gone to a trib, and it's got to be Clarksville, because that is 754. We didn't hear this trunk noise before, but that's probably just because we got a different trunk to the same place. To make sure, though, let me dial a 1, and I'm expecting to get that very same reorder, so let's see. Okay, so we're going into the same trib whether we dial 724, 744, or 754. And 754 is what trib it is. That's Clarksville. On selector 7, 4 is wired to absorb once. And on the 4 level are the 754 Clarksville trunks. So on selector 7 by the 4 write A, 754 Clarksville. The 5 is also wired to absorb once. So by the 5 on selector 7 write A, we don't know what's on the 5 level there yet. We'll find that out in a minute. But first, we'll have to call a ringing number in Clarksville. We've only heard the charming reorder so far. I'll dial it as 724 plus 4 digits, and we'll hear the Clarksville ring. Okay, now let's see what's actually on the 5 level of selector 7. You know, it has to be Blairsville, 745. Because if you look at the switching train, you can see that that's where it has to go. 7 goes to selector 7, 4 absorbs there, and then 5 is going to cut in to whatever is on that level. That's got to be the Blairsville trunks. Now, Blairsville is quite a distance from Gainesville, so I expect a very noisy carrier link. I'm going to dial it by dialing 725. That's the same as dialing 745, or 755, or 785 for that matter. I'll dial 725, it's just the quickest way. And let's see if we can hear some carrier noise coming on. I bet we will. Yup, it has a very distinctive whine. At least this trunk does. Whoops, that busy signal was so loud that I had to turn my tape recorder volume down. Let me call back in. This time I'll dial 755. That time I dialed a 1 into the Blairsville trunk and it went off hook. That's why the carrier noise got all quiet there for a second, so I had to get off of that real quick. Let's try again. Try to dial something else this time. Maybe get a vacant level recording.
We're sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator to help you. This is a recording. 404-745.
Now that was a loud busy signal. Okay, so on selector 7, 5 is A, 745 Blairsville. It's kind of interesting the way the codes 745 and 754 are handled. You hit selector 7 when you dial the 7, and then the 4 or the 5 absorbs, and then you cut in on the 5 or the 4 after that. So now let's try 7-6.
We are sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number or try your call again.
Please accept my apologies for the dynamic range of this last call. Sometimes the network was like that, and this was recorded using an open reel tape recorder with no automatic volume control, so you can really hear how the carrier noise is low and the ring is pretty low and that recording is blastingly loud. So sorry about that. I'll try to do better next time. This next call I'm going to turn the volume up for because I know I won't be getting that blastingly loud recording. Now what has happened? We dialed 7-6 and then 1. 7-6 put us into one of the tributaries. What tributary could that be? Well, there aren't any prefixes that begin with 7-6. So it's probably 7-something-6. Well, if you look at the prefix list, you can see that 746 fits the bill, and that if you were to dial 746, this is where you would end up. So on selector 7, 6 is 746, Dillard Mountain City. And you can get into it by just dialing 76, although typically you're going to get into it by dialing 746. Now, let's try to get a ringing number in Dillard Mountain City. I'll turn up the volume and reset the trunk. That time I dialed 746, we got a noisy trunk. I tried a 9, which is usually a valid 1000 group because there are payphones in it, but that started to go to the vacant level recording. Let's see if there's a 2000 group. Finally, a working 1000 group, the 2s. So I'll dial 762299, which in this case is a vacant number. Goes to a different recording done by the same guy. Starts late, too.
Been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number or try your call again. Thank you.
You notice how you heard the busy signal in the background just as the recording was starting up? Now I've heard that before. Hey, there it is again. I have no idea what causes that, but let's get the busy signal. I'll dial 2299 while on my other line I'm holding it up. So we'll dial the same number, but this time it'll be busy. The busy signal was so loud there that I had to sneak the volume down. Okay, enough of that office. Let's leave Dillard Mountain City and go on to 77. No noticeable change in the sound after dialing 77. Let me dial 7 again. Cool. Let me turn up the volume. Audible here is the unmistakable howl of a transmission system called N1 carrier, and the trunk from Gainesville to this trib is obviously on an N1 carrier system. Let me dial a 1. Dang, this analog stuff is great. You could hear the resonance in there, and then the N1 carrier and the reorder itself have this metallic quality, and it all makes a really just cool sounding effect. Now what this probably is a tributary called Suches, whose prefix is 747. Let's dial 747, and I'm sure that we're going to hear N1 carrier, and then when we do, I'll continue dialing and we'll perhaps get a busy signal instead of a reorder this time. There's that howl again, a different trunk, but the same carrier system. Now I'll dial the rest of this number. Okay, it's clear what's going on now. 747 is the prefix for Suches, Georgia. We got it when we dialed 777, we got it when we dialed 747, and now we'll get it dialing 727. I'll make 2 more calls. We'll get N1 carrier each time with a noticeable howl, and each of these calls gets a different trunk. On selector 7, by the 7, be sure to write A, comma, 747 Suches. That's S-U-C-H-E-S. Now let's check out 7-8. We already know that the digit 8 on selector 7 absorbs once, as does 2, 4, 5, and 7, but we don't know what's on the 8 level. So to find out, let's dial, 778. How's that? Oh, that's the prefix, 778. That's right. So let's dial it. Cool. Well, I'm not sure what that tick was, but that one either. But this is the first office we've hit that is not... What are these ticks? This is not a step or a Stromberg XY. This is an analog switch that is digitally controlled. Cool. I reset the trib. Hold on.
Please consult your new telephone directory for the new number. This is a recording, 404-778. We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. All Tallulah Falls prefix 965 numbers have been changed to Clarksville prefix 754. Please consult your new telephone directory for the new number. This is a recording, 404-778. We're sorry. You have...
Okay, let me explain what just happened. On selector 7, the digit 8 is wired to absorb once. We discovered that early on. But on the level itself are the trunks to Cornelia 778. Now, when you pick up a trunk to a step, the first selector is there, and therefore you can just pick the trunk and dial away. That's why when I dial into these other tributaries, I could just dial pretty much as fast as I want with a reasonable pause between digits. But Cornelia, not being a step, is a more modern switch, and that means, you guessed it, I have to wait for it to be ready to receive dial pulses. Because unlike a step, there isn't a dedicated selector just sitting there waiting to receive my digits. The switch has to get ready. Depending on what type of switch this is, it may have to attach some sort of a digit receiver to the line. But that's what the flash is about. That's to stop the dialing to give this switch time to either attach a receiver or, in any case, get ready to receive digits. See, right now I'm sitting on the Gainesville first selector, and that's why I can sit here talking and it never times out. But when I call into Cornelia, let me do that. I'm going to dial it by dialing 728. That says, hold up a second, okay, go ahead. And also, we have to finish dialing the number within a limited amount of time.
Please consult your new telephone directory for the new number. This is a recording.
Too bad I didn't play more with the Cornelia switch. To my way of thinking at the time, it was something modern. Actually, it was one of those transition switches that only stayed in the network basically from the late 70s through part of the 80s and maybe in some cases into the 90s. I recently came across some information that says the Cornelia switch was in fact a Northern Telecom SP1, which is a software-controlled crossbar switch, and that it gained the status of a toll tandem in the long-distance network. Now, it wasn't that way at this time in 1979, but apparently sometime around 1980 it did become a toll center of its own and maybe took over, handling some of the offices that we're reaching now through Gainesville. In any event, it's an SP1 and it was scheduled for retirement in 1982. So much for my mistaken idea that it was the face of the future.
So anyway, let me replay something that happened earlier, which is that I tried to disconnect from the connection to Cornelia and go back to Gainesville and redial it, and instead, the Cornelia switch just reset. So then I dialed only 4 digits to get it ringing again. Cheep instead of cheep means that we're still connected to the Cornelia trunk, and so we only have to dial the last 4 digits. That would happen in the old network sometimes. You'd attempt to disconnect, and you would end up keeping the first link, and a later link would reset.
Of course, we had a way of doing that on purpose called guard band, but that's not on this tape. In any case, on selector 7, 8 should say A, comma, 778 Cornelia SP1. Okay, now let's try 79. I'm not sure I heard anything that indicates we've gone somewhere, but looking at the list of codes, I'd be very surprised if we hadn't. Here's a 1.
We're sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator to help you. This is a recording. 404-379.
On selector 7, 9 is 379, Young Harris. Now the ring on that intercept trunk was really loud. Let's get a real number ringing and see if it sounds any different. I'll dial 79 and then something that is likely to be a working number. If you have a sound editor that you can look at those last 2 calls in, it's worth a look. There's an interesting DC offset on both the busy signal at the end of the intercept recording and that ring. You just have to see it, and it just surprises me that it gets through all the carrier. It's clear the tones in this office have an inherent asymmetry in their waveform. And speaking of things not matching up, there is something wrong with this picture if you consider that we have a 379 code and a 579 code served by this same Gainesville step tandem. If you'll look at the switching train that we've already drawn, you'll see that 379 and 579 both come to selector 7, level 9. But we got 379. Where's 579? Well, are they 2 different codes for the same office? That happens sometimes. Let's go ahead and see what's on 70, and maybe we'll find the answer. Now that's gone somewhere. Let's turn up the volume. See, there's a distinctive new trunk noise here. Let me dial something. Ooh, clickety-click. Now some dialing crosstalk. I like that sound it makes. Well, other than nice pulse repeater clicks and dialing crosstalk, looks like this call isn't going anywhere. So let's try going in again.
May I have the number you're dialing? May I have the number you're dialing?
Ah, cool. When the operator left the line, trunk noise got even more interesting. Let me try dialing. Nah, it doesn't respond. "7-0 is going to some office 1 is a vacant level. She hung up without saying anything. The ringtone that you heard is to tell the operator that this is not a 0 call, it's an intercept call. It's coming through on the same trunk as when people dial 0. And for that reason, I can ask her where we're coming in from, because she knows. 7, 0, plus 1.
Excuse me, cordboard operator. Hello?
May I have the number you're dialing?
Yeah, we're testing. What prefix am I coming in from?
579.
579?
Yes, sir.
And generally, do you answer these intercept calls and connect the customer through to another operator to ask what number is being dialed? Or do you ask yourself?
No, sir. I ask you what number you're dialing from. The number you're dialing, if you're dialing a number and I intercept you on the same exchange, then I check your number.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. 579 is this office, and it is on 70. That's how they handled it. Rather than building the switching train so that you could dial either code and get where you need to go, they've set it up so that 579 has to be converted to 70 or maybe 570. That means that every time we call it from Atlanta, the Atlanta switch has to dial something other than 579. It's probably dialing 70 or 570. And just to prove, as if it were necessary, that just plain dialing 579 into this tandem won't get you there, let's reset the trunk and literally call 579. Okay, that's 579. Now, there's a 1.
We're sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator to help you. This is a recording. 404-379.
What'd I tell you? On selector 7, 0 is 579, Big Canoe. Very surprising. Well, we got through the 7s, only took 13 years, and in the next program we'll finish up selector 10, and we'll do the 8s.